$3,938.58 a month, and one letter takes it all back. Not because the leukemia returned, because it didn't. 6 months after the last round of chemotherapy stops, the Department of Veterans Affairs is required by its own rulebook to re-examine him, and if that examiner finds nothing left to measure, the rating doesn't shrink a little, it drops to 0. But there's a second rating written into that same regulation, and it can keep real money in your pocket after the cancer's gone. It turns on what's sitting in your medical file before that examiner ever pulls up a chair. File that away. We're opening it later.
Michael here, and the code doing all of that is 7703. One line in the blood and lymph section of the rating schedule, and it doesn't pay for a diagnosis. It pays for a fight.
Take the word leukemia apart first, because the schedule does. It isn't one disease. It's a family, and today we're in the B-cell branch of it. Chronic lymphocytic leukemia, hairy cell leukemia, the whole B-cell line. Which branch you're on decides which door you can walk through, and there are 2 doors here almost nobody opens.
Think of it like a fire alarm that only pays while the building's burning, active disease, or a treatment phase. That's the whole trigger.
Hey everyone, I'm Maya, and Fenrir's alarm breaks in one place. A real alarm stops when the fire's out. This one keeps paying for 6 months after it's out. And that's exactly what fools people. Because 6 months after treatment stops, the exam is mandatory, not optional, not requested. He doesn't schedule it, and he can't dodge it. The letter arrives, and the clock's already running.
Then VA rates what's left behind. That's the actual language. If there's been no recurrence, rate on residuals. So the whole game moves off the cancer and onto the wreckage the cancer and the chemo left behind.
There's one question under every single one of these, and it's the one this whole episode has to answer. My dad was at Lejeune and has CLL. Does he even get a rating if he's not on chemo? Hold that, because the honest answer is going to sting, and it's the reason the claim sharks make a living off this diagnosis. Everything we use tonight is free on va.professorerica.com. The rating tables, the checklists, all of it, no sign up. Because 7703 is a lease, not a deed. You hold it while the fight is on.
A lease. Fine.
So let's read the fine print. 2 words decide the 100%. 2 presumptive doors decide whether you ever get it. And 1 exam, 6 months out, decides whether you keep it. That last one is where people get blindsided, and it's coming. Here's the ruling on the fine print, and it's 2 words long. Active disease. Or a treatment phase. That's the entire trigger for the 100%, and everything else tonight hangs off it.
Let me give you the treatment phase as actual clicks, because vague advice never gets done. Chemotherapy counts. Radiation counts, surgery counts, a stem cell transplant counts. If an oncologist doing something to you with the intent of killing the disease, you're in a treatment phase and you're at 100.
Then my question's simple. How long does a leukemia veteran actually sit at the 100%?
Let me fix the question before I answer it, because the question has a wrong unit in it. Not how long. How long after the treatment, because the regulation doesn't measure the cancer. It measures the therapy. The 100% runs while there's active disease or treatment. Then it keeps running past the last dose, and the mandatory exam lands 6 months after treatment stops. So the clock you care about doesn't start at diagnosis. It starts the day the infusions end.
Before we crown that good news, what about the guy who never gets treated at all?
That's the one everybody gets wrong. There's a rating line inside 7703 for chronic lymphocytic leukemia or monoclonal B-cell lymphocytosis, asymptomatic, Rai Stage 0. And the number next to it is 0%, not 10. Not the safest floor. I mean, safest if the paperwork's clean. 0. So let me bound this before anyone gets their hopes up. You qualify for the 100% if you have active disease, or you're in a treatment phase, or you finish treatment inside the last 6 months. If you're being watched and nothing's happening yet, this is not your check.
No, That's not what the reg says. You're telling me a man walks in with cancer in his blood, a real diagnosis in writing, and the VA writes down $0?
Read the line, Maya. Asymptomatic. Rai Stage 0. If the disease is being watched instead of treated, and it isn't doing anything to him yet, the schedule pays nothing. That's what the document says.
Then the reg's right, and it's still unfair. It's the same trap every time. One pot of rules, and the man who's scared but not sick yet gets nothing out of it.
Well, hang on, because the very next line flips it. Symptomatic CLL at Rai Stage 1, 2, 3, or 4 gets evaluated the same as any other leukemia under that code. So the 0 isn't a verdict, it's a…
Wait, Rai Stage what? Say that like I've never heard it.
Fair. It's a staging ladder your hematologist already wrote in your chart. Stage 0 means the count's high but nothing else is wrong. 1 through 4 means it started taking things. Lymph nodes, spleen, red cells, platelets. 0 pays nothing. 1 through 4 gets rated like a leukemia.
Then the 0 is worthless. If the VA pays 0 for watch and wait CLL, why would anyone file at all? Skip the exam, come back when it moves.
Look at what the 0 actually buys. Service connection. It's free to hold, and it's the hook every future increase hangs on. The day his count climbs and the spleen swells, he isn't starting a claim, he's filing an increase on a claim that already…
Wait, back up. The $0. Say that part out loud.
Fair, but let me land it first, then you can argue with it. It pays nothing today. $0, 0 cents, and anybody telling you a 0% leukemia rating puts money in your account this month is selling you something. What it buys is the door, not the check. Both things are true.
And the door's a form. The 21-526EZ, that one. It's free, it takes an afternoon, and it's the difference between a claim that exists and a claim that doesn't.
One hard line before we move. Chronic myelogenous leukemia isn't in this code at all. It sits in its own 7719 with its own criteria. File CML against the wrong code and you're arguing the wrong rulebook.
Miss that distinction and the clock restarts on you.
Which leaves the only question that matters. How does a leukemia get service connected in the first place? Quick, honest ask while we are here. If this has been worth your time so far, hit like, then subscribe and ring the bell. I know everyone asks, but this one is free, and it is how a small channel like this actually grows.
Michael, you've read the denial letters? What kills a leukemia claim?
Nexus. Nobody connects the cancer to the service, which is wild, because here there are 2 doors where you don't have to.
Door 1 is water, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. Adult leukemia sits on the presumptive list, right there in the regulation.
How long on base? Give me the threshold.
Before I put it on the board, over or under a full year of duty there? Guess out loud.
Over. Has to be. A year, minimum, or the VA would be handing this to everybody.
Under 30 days. And they don't have to be consecutive.
30 days. My abuela's been to more funerals than that.
30 days, spread across 3 years, a school, a workup, 2 weekends. That's most people who passed through.
The window runs August 1953 to December 1987. Inside it, exposure is presumed.
And New River. The air station's written into the same rule, so it counts, not just Lejeune proper. Reservists count. Guard counts. This is worth an expert. I'm dialing someone who knows these decisions cold.
People say presumptive like presumptive is one thing, it's 2. One presumption says you were exposed, a separate one says the disease came from it. Camp Lejeune hands you both in the same rule for adult leukemia.
Then it's soft. 30 scattered days is unprovable half a century.
The rule names the proof itself, military orders or other official service department records, not memory. not a buddy statement. The base is in your orders, or it isn't, and usually it is.
Orders. Fine. That lands.
So no nexus letter? Nobody pays a doctor to write the magic sentence?
Right. The presumption is the nexus. Buy that letter and you're paying for something the regulation already wrote for you, and that's the piece most people miss. Thanks for having me on, and tell your viewers the boring line in the regulation is almost always the expensive one.
Thanks, Dara. Michael, put the money on the board.
Straight off the current pay table then, 100% veteran alone.
And once the treatment stops, that's the ladder he falls down. 60, 30, 10.
3938. Minus 1435. Call it 2,500 gone. $2,503.56 exactly, every month. For life.
Okay, I'm saying it before anybody else does. Every veteran I have ever heard talk about this thinks Agent Orange means Vietnam. Full stop, end of sentence. But that belief has cost people sitting on this exact diagnosis.
Take the regulation at its word. The herbicide list doesn't say leukemia. It says all chronic B-cell leukemias, including but not limited to hairy cell leukemia and chronic lymphocytic leukemia. All of them. That's the widest language on the entire list.
Which matters, because CLL's the most common adult leukemia there is. The reg names it by name.
Vietnam runs January 9th, 1962 through May 7th, 1975, any length of time, in country or on the inland waterways.
And the guy who never set foot there? The mechanic in Thailand. The kid on Guam.
Covered. A Thailand military base, January 1962 through June 1976. Guam, or American Samoa, 1962 through July 1980. Johnston Atoll, 1972 through September 1977. The Korean Demilitarized Zone, September 1967 through August 1971.
Guam. Guam is on the list. And hold that, because there's a date on this calendar that decides whether a veteran ever gets a second bite at any of it. Wait until you hear how short it is. We come back to it before this video ends.
Johnston Atoll's the one that kills me. It's a rock in the Pacific. They stored the herbicide there, and almost nobody who stood on it has ever filed.
Nobody ever mailed a postcard saying congratulations, your rock qualifies.
It's a rock, Fenrir. It's a rock with a runway.
It's beautiful, honestly.
It's a storage depot. Anyway, the point stands. $2,503.56 a month is what the gap between 160% looks like, and a man who served on that rock walks past it every year because nobody told him the rock counts.
And it wasn't only the big fixed-wing runs. They flew it out of helicopters too. Low, over the delta, over the men.
Watch this, because it's the thing the whole presumption is built on. 1964. The spray boom's running under the aircraft, and the canopy underneath it is where our people were standing.
So dig out the orders, the photo album, the flight records, the DD-214, anything with a base name and a date on it. That's the whole claim.
Everything so far gets a veteran to the 100%. The next 10 minutes is where they lose it.
$2,503 a month. That's what they lose, and this is exactly how it happens.
6 months after the last treatment, the mandatory exam. I'm leaning in for this one because everything a veteran does or doesn't do inside those 6 months decides the rest of it.
And the examiner isn't a mind reader. He rates what's in the file, not what you felt in the parking lot, not what you told your wife. What's written down in a note by a clinician with a date on it.
You know the case that keeps showing up over and over, the same shape every time?
The one where the guy walks in feeling fine? Go.
A veteran, 40-something years in the rearview, CLL treated, and by spring, March, maybe April, he honestly can't remember. The infusions stop. He's relieved. He tells everybody he beat it. And the cold fact is, he did beat it, and it still cost him.
Cost him how? He's in remission.
Because remission is exactly what the regulation's hunting for. 6 months on, he sits down at that exam, proud. The examiner asks how he's doing, and he says fine. He says fine because he's a Marine, and he isn't going to sit there listing complaints to a stranger.
Even though his feet are numb.
Even though his feet are numb, and he naps at 2 in the afternoon, and he can't carry the groceries in one trip anymore. None of it is in the chart, so the examiner writes no residuals, and the form hears fine. And it writes down fine.
And the rating falls from $3,938.58 to nothing at all. Not because he lied, because nobody wrote it down.
So he loses the back pay too, all of it gone.
No, and this correction matters more than the story does. He doesn't lose back pay. He was paid at 100% for every month he was entitled to it, and the regulation is explicit that the 100 continues past the end of therapy. What he loses is everything going forward. A reduction runs forward, never backward. Which is why the fix has to be forward too.
So pause right here and go grab your treatment records. I'll wait. Those 6 months between your last infusion and that letter are the only window where writing something down is still free. And there's a second protection almost nobody invokes. A total rating can't be cut without an exam showing material improvement. Improvement, not silence.
So what actually goes in the file?
Residuals. This is the thing I told you to file away at the top, and here it is. The regulation says it in one sentence. If there's been no recurrence, rate on residuals. That's the second rating. It's been sitting there the whole time.
Which means the cancer leaving doesn't end the claim. It changes what the claim's about. Start with the nerves, because platinum and vinca chemotherapies chew up peripheral nerves, and numb, burning feet have their own code and their own.
Stop right there, that's my lane. Nerves, blood, head, I'm running it. Bucket 1, nerves, numbness, burning, weakness in the hands and feet. Own code per limb.
Per limb? So 4 feet and hands could each carry their own rating?
Each one. Bucket 2, blood, anemia, low platelets, infections that keep coming back. Everyone has a rating line.
And bucket 3's the one men skip.
Head, depression, anxiety, the fog. Mental health after cancer isn't weakness, and it isn't free.
It's the same pot of money. One pot. Every bucket is a code, and codes combine.
And that's how a veteran walks out of the 6-month exam still holding something. Not the 100, usually. But 60% for the nerves and the counts and the fog together, instead of a 0, is $1,435.02 a month for the rest of his life. I watch too many late-night documentaries about people who lost everything on a technicality, and this is a technicality, except it runs in your favor if you use it. So the promise from the top is paid. The second rating is the residual rating, and it lives in the same line of the same code. And it's true for almost everyone watching. Almost. There's one group this genuinely doesn't help, and we're getting to them.
You're right that it isn't automatic, but that sharpens the question instead of settling it, doesn't it? It isn't whether residuals are rateable, it's who writes them down and when. And the answer's your own doctor's before the letter comes on Form 21-526.
EZ, 21526 EZ.
EZ. I was wrong. Thank you. 21-526 EZ. The application for disability compensation and related compensation benefits. The suffix matters. A form without its suffix is a form nobody can find.
And I'm not reading you the residual table. It's dozens of rows across half the rating schedule, and me reciting codes at you helps nobody. We'll pin the current page in the description. The rule to remember is one sentence: rate on residuals. So bring the residuals.
Because silence at that exam isn't modesty. Silence is a pay cut, and the cut is permanent unless you fight it.
Fight it how? If that letter's already on the kitchen table, what does he actually do?
"60 days, that's the date Maya told you to hold, and after the pay rate, it's the most useful number in this video. The VA can't just switch your check off. Before a reduction that cuts your compensation, it has to propose that reduction in writing, tell you why, and give you 60 days to send evidence that the payments should continue where they are."
So the proposal letter isn't the end, it's the starting gun. And watch how the whole machine runs, end to end. Diagnosis, you file. Active disease or treatment puts you at 100. Treatment stops and the 6-month timer starts that day. Not the day of your last scan, not the day you feel better. Month 6, the mandatory exam. Then it forks. Recurrence keeps you at 100. No recurrence moves you to residuals, and the residual rating is whatever your file can prove.
And a veteran can only change that in 2 places, right? Where are they?
Documenting the residuals and the 60-day window. That's the whole lever, and both of them sit before the exam.
Take the plain version because there's a real fork underneath it. If you've got a presumptive exposure and a B-cell leukemia, file the day you're diagnosed. Don't wait for treatment to finish.
Because waiting burns the effective date, and every month of back pay behind
The intent to file, which holds for 6 months, so get it in.
a year, not 6 months. The intent to file holds your date for 1 year, and the form's 21-0966. Get that one wrong and you hand real money back.
1 year, corrected, and I'd rather take it here than in a letter.
Now the honest counter, and it's a real one. Filing isn't free of downside. File while you're asymptomatic, Rai Stage 0, watch and wait, and you get a 0% rating and $0. You'll open a letter that says service connected, 0%, and after everything you've been through, it'll read like an insult.
Then who's it actually wrong for?
Here's the ruling. Inside the boundary, yes, file, because the 0 costs you nothing to hold and it's the door every later increase walks through. Outside it, if you're expecting a check this month for a watch and wait diagnosis, the answer's no, there isn't one, and anybody promising you otherwise is charging you for the promise.
Which is the part that gets me. I get to a fabric market the second it opens before anybody's picked it over because the good stuff goes to whoever showed up early. Same instinct here. Show up early, file it yourself, and go through an accredited veteran service officer because that's free. Nobody should take a cut of a man's back pay for a form he could have filled in himself.
It's a rock with a runway, Fenrir. And it's a free form with a free helper.
Okay, that one lands. Continue.
Both things are true. The code's generous while you fight, and brutal the second the fight ends. Walk away with this: the check follows your file, not your diagnosis. Make sure that when the fight ends, the file is full. $7703 pays you for the war, not for the scars. And the scars are where the rest of your life gets decided.
Short version. It's a lease, not a deed. Next time we take the code apart that decides what happens when 2 of these residuals collide, and the answer is not addition.
So do one thing tonight. You log in, you pull your treatment dates, you find the day of your last infusion, and you count 6 months forward. Put that date on your calendar. What you get documented before it is money you keep. What you leave until after it is an argument you probably lose.
And for the man sitting at Rai Stage 0 tonight, I'll say what I said before. That 0% letter is going to feel like nothing, and I still think you file it because the door is worth more than the insult.
If this saved a veteran in your family from walking into that exam empty-handed, hit like and subscribe so the next one finds you. We are building this library one condition at a time, and you are the reason it keeps going. One question I can't answer for you. If you knew a 0% rating would pay you nothing for years, would you still file it today? Tell us below and tell us why. This is Professor Erica. Thanks for watching and signing off.